Hey guys, it's Roslyn here talking about chapters 4 through 6 in our Elements of Speech class. So, starting with chapter 4, we're essentially talking about connecting through verbal communication. So, a term that was described in the book was polarization, and that's basically the description of things in extreme views. So, whether or not something is beautiful or ugly, black or white, if someone's intelligent or stupid. So when we had the conversation about Serena Williams today, for example, the New York Times had a very extreme view about her having a body like a man. And then there's a lot of people out on the internet now defending her and saying how beautiful of a woman she is. And so that also goes into the topic of the pendulum effect, and that really just describe when two people have two very opposite viewpoints on something and they can't come to an agreement on that topic. The reality of Serena Williams, she's an outstanding athlete, but as far as looks, she may be average, but because of her status as a tennis player, and the money that she has, she's able to get a hairstylist, someone to pick out her wardrobe, someone to do her makeup, and they can make her look exceptionally beautiful than what she may look like on the court or, everyday life, that sort of thing. In chapter 5, we talk about nonverbal communication. So, this was talking a lot about signals that we use as opposed to words to communicate with someone. So, when we're having a conversation, for instance, a term that the book was talking about was complimenting. So, if you yell at someone, when you raise your voice to a certain degree, you let them know how important it is for you to get their attention. Maybe you're in trouble and you want to make sure that they hear you or they know how serious the situation is. Repeating, if you're having a conversation with someone and you nod your head, you're just essentially agreeing with that what that person is saying. Nodding can also be a sign of regulating a conversation, and that essentially just means that you're showing interest in what the person is saying and you want them to continue on with the conversation. Another one was substituting. So when you wave at someone, you're saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" And you might not necessarily say something out loud in words, or when you leave, you might just wave goodbye at that person. So it can be used for the same thing essentially. And then deceiving, that was also known as the poker face. So an example it gave in the book was a doctor, if they have a patient that has a really bad outcome, then they might have a serious look on their face because they don't want to let this person know, oh, you're about to die. But you want to say, oh, well, you have this condition and we have these things that we can do to try and, you know, relieve your pain or, stress and that kind of thing. Make things easier on you. Maybe they actually have a cure, but they don't want you to have a panic attack in their office, so they have the serious face. And then in chapter 6, we start talking about connected listening and thinking. So they broke up effective listening into, let's see, about 7 different stages. So you have the hearing stage, and that really just talks about whether or not you actually hear, like you hear someone talking in the background, or are you actually listening to what that person is saying. The next stage is understanding. So obviously, do you comprehend what that person is actually saying, or do you have no clue what they're talking about? Remembering, this has to deal with you remembering what that person just said to you. Thinking, we could talk about you thinking, in terms of yourself, what this person is saying and whether or not you can relate to that person. Interpreting, this had to deal with um, trying to put meaning to what that person is saying. evaluating, you basically are kind of forming an opinion about what the person is saying. So whether or not you agree with the person, if you have any instances in your past that is similar to the situation that the person is talking about. And then finally responding. So when you're having a conversation with that person, you have to implement all those stages together to give that person a response. And when you do respond, that person is going to know whether or not you heard anything that they said, if you've been listening, or if you just can't relate at all, because you may convey silence and that just seems like you have no response. If you give them a very detailed answer, then they'll know whether or not you were listening. And I mean, if you answer their question, obviously you listened to that person and thought about it attentively, and you kind of came up with something that let them know, hey, this person, understood what I'm talking about. So those are chapters 4, 5, and 6, and then I'll see you guys on the next discussion.